Hi everybody, it's Bill Whittle again. We're here at CPAC 2010. It's Saturday and the place is still jumping and we meet the most interesting people. And you know, we talked about this before. This election cycle in 2010 I think is unlike anything I've ever seen. There's so many people who are just coming out and running for office, which is what we've all been talking about forever. That's what the Congress should be, just regular people with real lives. And we're talking with Dan Fanelli. He's running against Mr. Grayson.
Exactly.
In, is it Florida 8th District for Congress?
That's correct, 8th Congressional.
Dan is a guy who's been a professional pilot all his life, was a naval aviator, something I'm obviously very interested in. And Dan, before we talk about the politics, your backstory is one that's extremely interesting to me personally. I know it would be interesting to everyone else because you were one of the professional airline pilots that were in the air on the morning of September 11th, 2001.
Exactly, flying into Washington National, no less.
So what was, can you tell us what happened? You're basically making a standard approach and nothing going on?
Well, we weren't made aware of anything in particular. The aircraft in front of me was getting close to the initial approach fix. That's about 25, 30 miles out. And they said, he said, we're aware of the situation. Can you tell us more?
That's when you just flipped to the frequency, the approach frequency?
Well, I'd been on that frequency, but yeah, pretty much I was just flipping to it.
So that was the first you'd heard of it?
That was the first we heard, and when the controller came back and said, we're aware one aircraft hit one of the Twin Towers, I was all ears.
Thought it was an accident at first?
Well, for me, for a pilot to fly into that controlled airspace out there, that is pretty unlikely. You know, I was an economics major, and probability and statistics said it's possible, but very unlikely. So, actually, as a Navy pilot, I had top secret briefings, and my Navy training kind of clicked in. I pray God this isn't terrorism, but I think it might be. When the next call came in.
Sure.
The next call came in, and that was, we just found out a second aircraft flew into the other Twin Tower. There was no question in my mind.
I was in LA when it happened, and I was woken up by a friend of mine, and I turned on the television just immediately after the first tower went down, so I got to the story fairly late. But when they first showed the replay of the second plane hitting, the first time they showed that, the first thought I had instantly was, those are not our pilots. I don't know what's going on exactly, but I know those are not our pilots. So one of the things that nobody really appreciates about 9/11 is just the massive scale of bringing 4,000 or 5,000 airliners down. Everybody normally doesn't realize that all aircraft and commercial flights across the U.S. are on very rigid flight plans. They're pretty much timed to the minute. And now you've got 5,000 or 6,000 airplanes in the air, and they all have to land somewhere. Mm-hmm. What was that like?
It was unbelievable. And as you said, people aren't aware of what the air traffic controllers did as well as the pilots, because you have never experienced anything like that, where every aircraft was getting radar vectored. Some were holding, some were shooting approaches immediately to get them on the ground. It was very intense. But in addition to that, for the pilots that had the forethought to realize there might be a terrorist on my plane and I have to protect my aircraft, and we immediately did. I said to my pilots, who were my first officer and second officer, who were excellent pilots, they didn't have the benefit of the military training I had. I said, this is definitely terrorism. If I was in charge, I would not let anyone land at Washington National. I don't believe we will. We'll be going to Washington Dulles, and we have to protect this cockpit in case somebody's in the back of our aircraft.
So you guys were ready to fight within a minute or two of getting the call?
We were ready right away.
It's that military training. Can I ask you what you said to your passengers? Because you didn't end up going to National. You ended up breaking off the approach. Did you end up landing in Dulles?
We were diverted to Dulles.
What do you say to your passengers on a moment like that, just before and nobody even knows really what's going on?
Well, the first thing I did actually was talk to my lead flight attendant. Now, she didn't know what was going on, and I didn't want. This is pretty incredible information that some people couldn't handle very well. I asked her, Mary, how are things going back there? I mean, is everybody quiet, or do you have anybody that has a little bit more interest that you might want to tell me about? And she said, no, it's pretty much early in the morning. Most of the people are actually sleeping, or everything's fine. At that point, I figured we're so close, we should be in pretty good shape, and we should be able to get in there safely. So from that point, we were okay, except with all the aircraft. It was a beautiful day. Because it was such a clear, beautiful day, we don't carry that excess reserve fuel, so there really wasn't any time for holding. We needed to get on the ground. We did land at approximately the same time as the plane crashed into the Pentagon. So unbeknownst to us, we were just within a few miles of that aircraft.
So Dan, you were a naval aviator. You went to the U.S. Naval Academy. You wrestled at the Naval Academy.
That's correct.
And then you flew the P-3 Orion, which is an anti-submarine platform, and we got a chance to see some of those when we went down to Gitmo. We staged overnight at Jacksonville, and those Orions have been flying for 50 years. So you did a a number of years in the Navy doing anti-submarine patrols.
I sure did. 8.5 active duty, 11.5 in the reserves, and the P-3 Orion's a great aircraft and pretty much against the Soviet threat when it was a big threat for their nuclear weapons.
Well, this sounds exactly like the kind of person we want to see in Congress, because you don't seem like the kind of guy who's been angling for the job your entire life. You've been out there in the real world. You've been a professional. You've been a military pilot. You've been a professional commercial pilot. What got you motivated to go and run for office in the 8th Congressional District in Florida?
A few different things. Certainly September 11th got me going that we have to protect our freedoms. But so many things that my wife and I got involved with not only the Republican Party, but the Tea Party. We're getting too far left to center. The spending is out of control. As an economics major, it can't go on. And we've got to stimulate jobs. Government's getting too big. Private industry is getting too small, and that's where our jobs come from. That's the great economic engine of this great nation.
You bet it is.
So it motivated me to move forward. Now, I wasn't planning on running for Congress, but some people at church came up to me and said, we need somebody like Dan to run for Congress. And then they all looked at me and said, why don't you run, Dan? So this is too important to sit on the sidelines.
Yeah, it sure is. It sure is. And we're seeing this all over the place. We're seeing people running for Congress that have never had any political ambition or even really the idea. And just suddenly they feel like, my God, this is out of control. We got to do something. American citizens just have to step up. It's almost a patriotic call. It's almost a national security issue, this spending.
It is. National security also on the Space Coast, where they want to shut down the Space Coast,
yep.
Shut down our satellite defenses, turn it over to possibly China or Russia.
Can you imagine?
Unbelievable.
You can't make this stuff up.
Yeah, and I do have 2 grandchildren that were born about 15 days ago. With my daughter being pregnant, it's like we have to give our children, our grandchildren, a better world. We can't just rest on our laurels. We can't be the silent majority saying everything's going to be okay, this is America, because if we don't protect our freedoms, we're going to lose them.
Dan, if we saw what happened with the internet and the Tea Party movement with Scott Brown's remarkable win. We had Doug Hoffman in that very chair yesterday, came within a micron. I think it may have actually been stolen from him. But if there's people around the country who are either in the 8th Congressional District in Florida or elsewhere, and they want to help you out and help contribute to your campaign, is there a website or something that you can tell us about?
There sure is. It's www.electdan2010.com. That's electdan2010.com. We've got some neat videos on there. Please check out our videos, and of course they can donate. Certainly donations would be helpful.
That's be great, Dan. It's great talking to you. And I just want to say one other thing to our viewers back home. I was happy to talk to Dan because I have a background in aviation. I've had 2 in-flight power failures just as a regular private pilot, and I managed to handle those well. But the thing about these professional pilots is these guys, you talk about Captain Sullenberger and his remarkable job that he did. Every one of these guys, every one of them is exactly the same way. The thing about Sullenberger, the amazing, remarkable thing about that man is that there's nothing amazing and remarkable about him as far as commercial airline pilots go. And I can't imagine a better background with that and the military and economics in this election cycle. So if you feel like you can help somebody out who's an American patriot running for Congress, I think Dan's a great guy, and I know he could use your support. So I'm Bill Whittle here at CPAC 2010. The game keeps on going, and the country is changing. There's some giant thing awakening. I don't know what it is, but when people like Dan are just waking up one morning and saying, you know what, I got to go run for Congress, I think that's what the founders had in mind. So Bill Whittle again at CPAC 2010, and we'll see you soon.